or don't allow yourself to grow thinking I'm oppressing my child if I buy them a doll because they're a girl. Just let them have a choice and see what they choose. And unfortunately, your child's going to grow up inside with the media that's influencing them anyway, but try and govern which media your child looks at and try and allow them to grow into the person they want to grow in. If your girl wants to be a tomboy, then let her be a tomboy. If your girl wants to play with dolls, let her play with dolls. But don't let Marxists and Fabian socialists tell you that it's oppression alone which is making them do that. Because it's a lie. Because gender roles exist inside the anatomy of each human being. Psychologically, chemically, chromosomically, if that's even a word. And by mimicking the actions of their immediate environment, as I've seen here. So it's not purely a social construct. So get that out of your minds. It's just not.
United the nations, it's gonna take some patience. So unzip your sheepskin, the road every turn. Hey, 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 the road every turn. Hey, hey.
Guys, does gender identity exist is something I wanted to talk about. Now, it's a topic that you have to approach with an open mind, but you also have to approach with science and the facts of nature. You have to do that. You don't have a choice in the matter. So the societal aspect of this, and the reason I'm interested in speaking about this, is that for sure people will say that gender identity doesn't exist. Now, socially, it shouldn't exist in the way it does. It really shouldn't. Now, what I mean by that is I agree 100% that we shouldn't enforce the idea that, for instance, girls like pink cooking and dollies and men like cars and soldiers in blue. This is nonsense, of course, and I 100% am with that. That is nonsense. You shouldn't do that to a child. But how should it be tackled is the question. Now, what is interesting about this, and the reason I want to make this video, is that I've been speaking about Fabian socialism. Now, Fabian socialism is so heavily interrelated with... hold on, guys. Hold on. Karibu! Kamaraba, karibu sana. Karibu sana. This is Emmanuel. He's our gardener. Amazing guy. He only has one arm, this guy. So, karibu. Thank you. Fully. Sante. Only has one arm and he's our gardener. And he has 2 acres that we sort out himself. But I'll pick this video up in a second, so quickly. Sorry guys, I'm back. So, what I was saying, Fabian socialism and Marxism are tied in, they are one and the same. And if you look at the idea of gender roles and gender identity, now societally speaking, of course, a male and a female can achieve exactly the same thing in life. There's no difference in that side of things. They can both achieve what they wish to achieve in a career sense, in an academic sense. This is just a fact now. There are still dated institutions which are masculine dominated from the past male oppressions that we've had due to the fact that males, starting from a tribal sense, were the protector, because most males are physically, when it comes to nature and tribe life, most males are the hunter, most males are the warrior, because they are physically larger. This is nature's pre-designed. We see this in animal nature all the time, but we're very far away from nature. We don't live in a pride of lions where it's like that. We don't live in tribes like that anymore. We live in a society. Now, of course, as I say, I think it's ridiculous to input onto a child that a boy should like blue and a girl should like pink and all of this stuff. But at the same time, what's of interest to me is that part of Marxism, which is so closely related to Fabian socialism, you can barely see the boundary between them, is to say that one of the principles is that you must get rid of within society many things. Now, the reason for this, we know from history, people will not surrender capitalism because it means they have to surrender what they've created and what they've earned. Now, capitalism is not an evil thing if it's governed correctly. The uncapped levels of wealth and greed and power are ridiculous, and this is where the problem lies with it. But if you want to introduce Fabian socialism, now bearing in mind the Fabian society and Fabian socialism exists, there are socialist parties and socialist governments on the planet. If you want to implement that, and you know for a fact that from history, it's a proven absolute fact from history that people in the West, Western cultures, won't surrender capitalism because they feel they have to surrender what they've earned, etc., their possessions and so on and so forth. Then you've got to accept that if they are going to carry on existing as a Fabian socialist party or as a socialist party, they have to find a means to implement their agenda. Otherwise, what's the point in existing? What, to just talk about the idea of it? But as the Fabians operate, as the turtle is one of their logos, when we strike hard, is the Fabian, the name of the General Fabian, to chip away slowly to bring about the change you want, to move slowly like the turtle and then make your strike. To make you disillusioned with capitalism is the only option for socialist, Fabian socialists, to introduce a one centralized new world order or a one world government. Now, part of their agenda, which is a written agenda for Marxism, not for Fabian socialism, but the line is just blurred between them. They're so similar. The only difference is that in Fabian socialism, they say that the government should own the production, not the produce. Marxism says they should own produce and production. That's pretty much the only difference you'll find. Now, Marxism says many things. You have to destroy the capitalist nation's relationship with religion, because then they don't have anything to turn to for help other than the institution of the government. They can't turn to the church. They can't turn to their congregation. The other thing you have to do is to destroy the family unit. But you also have to destroy the idea to do the family unit of having the typical stereotypical family unit, which I don't necessarily agree with, that the male should be the breadwinner, so on and so forth. But you have to destroy gender identity.
By targeting the family unit, the cultural Marxists knew they could eventually destroy the middle class of the United States. Why? Because the family unit is the basic building block of the middle class. Destroy the middle class, and you eventually destroy the economic engine of the United States. Destroy the economic engine of the U.S. and its political structure, built on capitalism and the Constitution, crumbles.
The whole point of a socialistic society is to do four things. Marx talks about destroying the family, 2, destroying property, 3, destroying religion, and 4, destroying the nation.
Now, don't get me wrong. For sure, I 100% agree that men and women can achieve exactly the same things in life when it comes to career and academics and so on and so forth. But there are points of nature, well, not necessarily, I'll give you an example. There are parts of nature that wouldn't allow for a man to achieve that. A man can't breastfeed, but he can artificially do it now with breast formula, in a bottle. But what my point is that the abandonment of genders is a Marxist ideology. And a Fabian socialist, which is so tied into Marxism, it's unbelievable, has just spoken about it. Now, My thoughts on it, I discussed this with Fritzi, as I say, is indeed that we should have less of this in society where you say a boy likes cars and a girl likes dolls. This is ridiculous. We know it's not how it is in life. However, and it is a big however, I live in a society here where children are not influenced by society. And I've lived in a society where we have this feminism which frustrates me, where everybody's a male oppressor. I've met feminists like this, and it really it bugs me because not everyone is a male oppressor. I've taken the role that a typical female would take here whilst I was on my own, being a parent, having to act as a compassionate, stereotypically a compassionate mother and a father at the same time, because stereotypically the affection would come from the mother. In the Western stereotype, I'm not saying that's how it should be, because fathers should be compassionate too. It frustrates me that fathers in the West say they're babysitting. No, you're being a father. You're not babysitting. You're looking after your children. This is something that bugs me about the way the West has perceived things, as in the roles. But within nature, the problem is you have this reflection in nature where, for sure in the tribes, the man was the protector and the hunter-gatherer because of his physical stature predominantly being larger than that of women. Doesn't mean to say women can't defend themselves. I'm just speaking of history and how it was. That's why we had predominantly male-dominated armies. It led on from there. Nature brought that about in its way, because nature influences the psychology of us, as does the chemistry of a man being different to a woman, him having more testosterone, so on and so forth. But here in this society, I watch children, and I see that there's a false idea being put into the Western system. For sure, you can go around saying that we are genderless and sexless, but is it artificial? Now, what I've spotted here, most of the children that we support, out of the 600 kids, many of them live in one room with their parents. They don't have electricity, they don't have water even, but what that means is they don't have access to society, they don't have TV, they don't have magazines, newspapers. Society is not influencing them. Their immediate environment is influencing them. You never see a little boy here with a fake dolly tied to his back in a kanga. It's the equivalent to a child pushing a toy pushchair. In England, here, a kanga's a sheet. You tie your child to your back. You only ever see little girls doing it. And the reason behind that is not that they're told to do that. It's because they watch. Now, you will get the odd girl who's off, as always, being a tomboy. You'll get the odd boy who's more effeminate. But what tends to happen is, in a natural way, the girl mimics the mother. Because the mother here, when away from artificial breastfeeding and such, is the one who has to carry the baby by nature's design, because she's the one who's lactating to provide the baby with breast milk. She has a gender role. She has that gender role here in a natural environment where she's not influenced by electricity and not influenced by the society and mainstream media. She must do that for the baby to survive. And the child mimics that. Now, the boy is left. A boy might mimic that once in a while, but predominantly the boy will see that because the mother's doing that, some mothers do that whilst working here because they're amazing women. I've often said without the Tanzanian women, the country would collapse. I've seen women working in the fields and breaking stones in a quarry with babies tied to their back when the husbands have disappeared, etc. But the boy, if his father is around, will see that the father's going out working whilst that's happening. So he'll mimic that as well. So this is something in nature that is a reality. That we have gender roles, we have chromosomes X and Y, we have different chemistry, we have different psychology. In short, away from academics, away from life achievements and away from career, there is a difference between male and female. And the concept that a child here will lean towards playing with a doll is not put on a child by society. It's done by the child watching its environment and seeing that the mother's doing it. This is my observation. Now, that doesn't mean I'm saying all girls should go and play with a doll. I'm just saying that there's a false feminism in Marxism, an ideology of false feminism that says they will teach young women to abandon their gender role, but also to make them feel as if it's oppressive at times, which many do feel that a child, it's presumed a girl would play with a doll. But here where there's no oppression on the child from any media source or any societal source, the child mimics the mother. Now, as I say, I'm not putting everything in a box. I'm saying, for sure, sometimes a boy might pick up a fake dolly and mimic the mother. This will happen. But predominantly, I don't see that here. So I can only go off what I've seen. And I am 100%, 1,000,000%, however you want to word it, behind gender equality. But gender roles is a different story. Because, of course, we are equal. Man and woman are equal. As the Bible said, the Bible did not make man first and then a woman called Eve. As the Bible says, and he made man and woman, and their name was Adam. If you understand esoterics like I do, you'll know man and woman, positive, negative, male, female, is the atom. The removal of an electron from an atom starts the multiplication of all life. Eve is the electron. A woman's not made from a rib of man. It's the electron splitting from the atom to begin the multiplication of all life. It says man and woman are Adam. Man and woman are the atom. There's a direct equality, no matter what religious institutions have said or masculine-dominated society has said. We are one in the same when it comes to that. But we have to accept that we do have, within nature's design, certain roles. Now, we can abandon them, and we can use artificial breast milk and feeding methods, and that would take that away completely, so I get that. But I just find it really interesting that what I've observed here is that little girls do that because they mimic their mother more often than what they would mimic their father. But I also find it interesting that someone speaking about this, who's so interconnected to the Fabian socialism, which is in itself identical to all intents and purposes to Marxism. We have to be savvy, we have to be vigilant, and we have to know what is going on around us. Fabian socialists want everyone to turn their back on capitalism. They are doing a really good job. They're doing a very good job. That's what I've just said to someone today. This hypernormalization documentary, all it does is make you lose absolute faith in the current system that you live in. But it doesn't tell you anything about the people who run this system, who are creating that, predominantly the banking dynasties, and the fact that they are organized together to bring in a new system, a new world order, a Fabian socialist order, if you like. It doesn't mention that, because that would blow the cover. All they want these things to do is to produce in you disillusionment with the capitalist system. So when they offer you the solution, you jump at it. But not only that, you feel that you as a person individually chose this because, due to freedom of speech and the free media, it's now become apparent that the current system's corrupt. It is corrupt, but doesn't mean the one they're going to offer you is any better. Because the way they are offering it to you is by showing you the parts of corruption that they want you to see. They're not speaking about fractional reserve banking, they're not speaking about the banking cartels, they're not speaking about Rothschild funding and controlling most wars, considering he owns and controls all of the central banks which print the money to go to war, and most of the arms companies, etc. So yes, gender roles do exist within humanity. Men and women can achieve exactly the same. This dated, ridiculous religious belief I've addressed with what I said about Adam and Eve. But don't grow up or don't raise your child saying my girl shouldn't play with dolls. That's a societal thing. You let your child choose. You make sure your child has that choice, and don't you teach your child that there's no gender role. If your child leans towards playing with dollies and you've been breastfeeding that child, or you've breastfed in front of them, it's because they're mimicking their home environment. And be sure that your children know that. Make sure that you don't bring upon them this ideology that society has made you feminine and made you masculine, and if it weren't for society you might be different. Because here, where media is not influencing the children, it's still 80-90% of the time happening that the boys mimic the fathers, the girls mimic the mothers. And the role reversal is not possible here, where you don't have artificial breast milk. So this is, to me, a hint on that there's nothing wrong with a little girl playing with dollies or wanting to be girly, same as there's nothing wrong with a little boy wanting to do it. But there's something wrong with telling society that they should be careful of that, because it's oppression that has made their little girl want to play with dollies. This is what Marxism wants to do, to abandon gender equality. So as when they've abandoned gender equality, they manage to dismantle the traditional family unit. And this is where we are. And Fabian Socialist just spoke about it. I hope no one's misconstrued what I'm saying. As I say, men and women can achieve exactly the same, financially, academically, career-wise, life achievements, physical achievements. It's just a proven fact. Well, not fully proven, of course. Most of the time, male athletes can run faster, etc., because of our anatomy. There's plenty of women faster than me, I know, believe me, but I mean at the top level sort of thing. But don't allow yourself to think that it's okay to say, or don't allow yourself to grow thinking, I'm oppressing my child if I buy them a doll because they're a girl. Just let them have a choice and see what they choose. And unfortunately, your child's going to grow up inside with the media that's influencing them anyway, but try and govern which media your child looks at and try and allow them to grow into the person they want to grow in. If your girl wants to be a tomboy, then let her be a tomboy. If your girl wants to play with dolls, let her play with dolls. But don't let Marxists and Fabian socialists tell you that it's oppression alone which is making them do that. Because it's a lie. Because gender roles exist inside the anatomy of each human being. Psychologically, chemically, chromosomically, if that's even a word. And by mimicking the actions of their immediate environment, as I've seen here. So it's not purely a social construct. So get that out of your minds. It's just not. It's part of nature's design. And no, there's no right or wrong. A child can go one way or the other. But so long as you don't think oppression alone has made your little girl want to play with dolls, or made your little boy want to play with toy cars and soldiers, for example. So, okay, just want to share that. Much love, guys. Bye.
United the nations, it's gonna take some patience. So unzip your sheepskin, the road every turn.